Hey guys, I thought I would share with you my 10 absolute all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes. I feel like I've done this recently, but I think it's because I've done a couple of those eyeshadow palette tags and there's always like the favorite included in that. But when I looked back at my videos, I have not done this in a couple of years. I think April 2020 was the last time I did this. So I thought I would do a refresh of this video, and I saw Ali Glines do it. I know this is not like an incredibly unique video, but seeing her video pop up in my subscription feed, it just like prompted me to do it. So anyway, thank you to Ali for doing this video, prompting me to do it. A lot of these palettes will seem like I've been talking about them forever, which I have been, and some of them are fairly new. So let's go ahead and get started with one that I know you guys will know that I'm going to talk about, and you probably even saw it in the thumbnail. Sorry, I'm trying to arrange my palettes here. But the first one is the Natasha Denona 28 Green Brown palette. You guys have heard me talk about this palette endlessly and how much I love it. And when I first came across this palette, I feel like right around when this became popular was probably like my first or second year into YouTube, maybe my first year in YouTube. And this was so intimidating to me. But once I got a little bit more comfortable with playing around with eyeshadows and makeup in general, I ended up purchasing this. So you've got some like lighter browns over here, some deeper browns over here, and in the middle you've got the greens. You have a little bit more of a neutral green family up here, and then these are the brighter kind of blue tone greens at the bottom. It's just so beautiful. I mean, I do use the browns a lot more than the greens, but I feel like if I'm thinking of using a greenish eyeshadow or even an eyeshadow that is a little bit out of my comfort zone, I always think about this palette. You can see I've loved it quite a bit. And this is like my all-time favorite eyeshadow palette. This is the one that you'll hear me talk about in those eyeshadow palette tag videos as like my all-time favorite. I love this. If this were to ever go bad, or word was that this was going to go out of stock, although I feel like, I don't know if this is discontinued. I don't feel like I see this in a lot of places. The blue purple one, I feel like is still lingering around, but this one I feel like I'm starting to see disappear. So I don't know if this is like officially discontinued or they're just producing less of them. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But if there was ever like an official sort of announcement that this was being discontinued, I would probably go out and just buy another one because it's just incredible. It's incredible. I love it. So this is my first all-time favorite palette. My second one, we may as well just stick with Natasha Denona, is the Glam palette. I just love this palette. It is a little bit on the cooler side, and I've really come to generally just prefer neutral to cooler toned eyeshadows. The warmer eyeshadows, I still enjoy from time to time, and I feel like they really had their heyday, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. I feel like every palette that came out was really warm toned. Everything was like super peachy and red and like sunset vibes. And so this was really refreshing. I remember when this came out. This is probably, how old is this now? Maybe 2 years old? Seriously, time has no meaning anymore. But anyway, I love this palette. I just feel like it's so pretty. It's very, very complimentary. It's very, very everyday. There's a lot of different finishes in here. You can stick with the mattes if you want to keep your look a little bit more subdued. And then we've got a lot of her metallics in here. And Natasha Denona metallics, as you guys know, are just so shiny and so shimmery and just so, so pretty. So I just love this one. Love it. So this is number 2 on my list. And let's just stick with the ones that I think are predictable here. I've got a Pat McGrath Mothership palette here. I'm sure you guys can guess which one this is. This is the very first one. This is Mothership 1 Subliminal. And again, we've got a cooler toned palette here. But, if you just ignore the party shadows over here on the right-hand side, if you just look at these 6 shadows here, I mean, what an amazing, beautiful, like everyday palette. Like transition shade, inner corner, brow bone, if you want to deepen up your outer corners, if you want to line your eyes. Like I just love, love, love this palette. And of course, you've got these fun shades over here. Admittedly, I don't really use this blue very often. It's not something that I reach for or I think to use on an everyday basis, but I do think to use these 6 over here and maybe one of these like shadows if I'm going out or if I want to, like party up my look a little bit. Of course, I'll reach for one of these, but I just love, love, love these 6 shadows here. I just find them to be so basic and so just everyday, easy to use. Of course, the formula is wonderful. And there's just something about the first three Mothership palettes that Pat McGrath came out with that are just so special, so nostalgic for me. I mean, when she came out with these palettes, it was like, wow, you know, just everyone was so blown away by the packaging, the beveled mirror on the inside, and I think number two, Mothership 2, Sublime, the one with the green one, I think that was the most popular because that had like warmer shades over here. And again, warmer, you know, eyeshadow palettes were so popular when these came out. But I just really, really loved like these shades right here, you know, because I just live right, right in this like taupe city right here. So this is number 3 on my list. All right, the next palette is definitely one that I'm sure you guys would guess would appear in this list of mine, but this is the Viseart Neutral Mattes palette. This is just a classic, a staple. Everyone loves this palette. Everyone loves the Viseart matte formula. I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of people love the Viseart matte formula, which I do. I'm included in that group. And this was one of those palettes. I remember when I first, you know, was getting into makeup again, I was like, wow. Like it just, I felt like I didn't need anything else in the world. Like this was the only eyeshadow palette that I needed. And it's so beautiful. You can mix the shadows just to get something in between. Like a lot of times I will end up mixing this shadow and this shadow to get like a really light transition shade. Just, it's everything you need. It's everything you need in matte eyeshadows. If you just want to create like a really natural, but like dimensional kind of look, you really cannot go wrong with this. And this is also the perfect palette to like supplement to any of your like fancier palettes, any of your palettes that have just like a lot of shimmer shades or satin shades. You're just looking for like, I just need like a transition shade, or I just need something to like lighten up my brow bone. This is it. This is your friend. This is number 4 on my list. Okay, I'm trying to go through the palettes that I feel like would be very, very predictable for my list here. I think the rest of these are relatively new. Okay, so this list is kind of split in half. 5 are kind of my predictable picks. 5 are newer, I would say. So my last predictable pick, number 5, is the Dior Soft Cashmere Quint. You guys know how much I love this palette. It is just so me. It's a little bit on the cool side. This brown, I would say, is probably a little bit more neutral, or the most neutral shade. Everything else is fairly cool, but just gorgeous. I mean, just so beautiful. I love the formula. I love the shades. I love the finishes. Everything is just so pretty. And I feel like you can use one shadow in here for one and done. You can use all the shades in here to get like a nice dimensional look. They're just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I've gone on and on about this stupid palette for years now. Ever since it came out, I feel like it's been a couple years. So the Soft Cashmere palette from Dior is number 5 on my list. So now we're getting into the palettes that are a little bit less predictable. These are newer to my collection, or ones that I've just been reaching for a little bit more. Anyway, the next palette I want to talk about is the Viseart Cashmere palette, and I love this palette. I just love it. I have talked about this quite a bit in my more recent videos, but since the last time I did this video in 2020, this is definitely newer to my collection. So let me just pull it out. Of course, it's got a beautiful case. I just love it. And this, again, is a fairly cool toned palette. I would say this shade is probably the most neutral, warm leaning, but I think that makes for a really, really great transition shade. And the rest of these shades are just neutral to cool tone. Like I love, love, love this shade. This is like a beautiful taupey shade. This one is fantastic as well. I really like the satin shades from Viseart. They're not like really high shine in your face. They just have the most beautiful sheen to them. Just really subtle, very sophisticated, and I love that about them. And then there's 4 mattes in here. This one, this one, this one, and this one. And so if you're looking for like an all matte look, you can do that as well. I like to use this as liner. It's just a gorgeous, really, really gorgeous palette. I feel like it's one of those palettes where you can do a lot of different things. There's plenty of shades in here where they're like one and done shadows, like this one, even this one if you want to go for something a little bit more wine toned. And then you can do obviously like monochromatic looks. There's like purples in here. You can do like really dimensional looks, like just it's so versatile, and I just love it. And of course, I love the quality of Viseart shadows. So this is definitely one of my all-time favorite palettes. And then the rest of the palettes I'm going to talk about are all quads, and I'm realizing, yeah, all of my previous palettes, they were all larger palettes, but I love smaller palettes. I think larger palettes can be very inspirational, but for some reason, I just don't reach for them, at least not these days. Probably because they're just, for me, easier to use. I just, they're kind of like the color story is all thought out for you. It's not like you have to get too creative. And maybe I'm just getting lazy in my older years. So the next one I want to talk about is the Chanel Mediterranean Quad. I love this quad. This quad has shown up in some of my more recent favorites, and it's just beautiful. Like all of the shades in here look very similar, and I didn't think by looking at it you'd be able to get like a look that had any sort of dimension. But once you actually swatch them and get them on your eyes, like this shade is, fairly deep, and then this shade is really bright with some like micro glitters in there. Just really elegant. This palette is just elegance to me. Elegance in a palette. So that is the Chanel Mediterranean Quad. It is number 747. Oh, and I should mention these are all baked gelée formula. So they just have that really beautiful kind of like soft veil of a metallic, like satin metallic finish, just really gorgeous. So that's Chanel. The next quad I've got here is from Clé de Peau. And this one, I'm not sure what it is. Of course, I'll list it down below in the description box, because the Clé de Peau eyeshadows are refillables. So actually, I think I can just pop it out. Hang on one second. Oh yeah, it pops out really easily. So this is number 305. And I don't think they have the actual name of the quad in here, but it's number 305. And I'm sure you can see why I love it. Like this, this taupe, I'm like a broken record. This taupey shade is just so gorgeous, but you've got, plenty of dimension here if you want to go deep, if you want to go light. And then this one has a little bit of warmth. It's like a little bit of a coppery shade. So it's just really gorgeous. It's just a beautiful, like neutral toned palette. And if you know anything about Clé de Peau eyeshadows or most of their powder products, I would say they're so soft. They're so buttery, so soft, and really easy to use because they just blend out beautifully. Like just a dream, an absolute dream. So that is pick number 8 for all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes. Okay, and my last two palettes. First, we have the Tom Ford Metal Lust palette. This came out with the Extreme Badass collection just recently. And so this is X1 Metal Lust. I think this is limited edition. I think it was sold out pretty quickly. I hope they restock it, but I love this palette. I love these two matte shades, and then these two like really high shine, like almost kind of like chunky glittery kind of shades. When I use this shade down here, it really reminded me of Victoria Beckham's Lid Luster in Mink, which you guys know I really love. It's the one in the little pot. That one, I would say the Lid Luster is probably even a little bit softer. Like this was a little bit less flaky than the Lid Luster, but it had the same effect. And it was very similar in formula, where I feel like you had to pick up the flakes and place them down on your lid and then kind of smear it out. And it's just gorgeous. Like you get kind of like a glossy, metallic, glittery kind of effect, and it's just stunning. So I love this palette. That's the Metal Lust. And then the last palette is one that's really new to my collection, and I was not sure that I was going to include it in this like all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes video, but I really love it. I love it. And this is the Tom Ford Eye Color Quad Creme in Rose Topaz. I love this new formula. I love this cream formula. I think it's different for Tom Ford. The creaminess is really nice. You can use your fingers, you can use a brush. I like to use a brush. And I just really love this one. He came out with 3. This one is Rose Topaz. He came out with Tiger Eye, he came out with Smoky Quartz. That one is like deeper, all matte. The Tiger Eye is like a little bit warmer and brighter. So this one to me is just like the perfect kind of everyday sort of palette. I like having a little bit of variety. I'm not actually the biggest fan of like all matte palettes. So I like that we've got some like more shimmery shades like this one. And again, we have like a a taupey shade, a magical, beautiful taupey shade. And these just are, they're just gorgeous, really, really gorgeous. And I feel like these three shades you can use as one and done shades. I'll just use these two, I'll just use these two. Like you can have multitude of different looks just from this one quad. And I love it. I really, really love it. If you guys have not tried the new cream formula, I suggest you give it a shot. Hopefully you can go into store and try it out before actually purchasing it. But I'm really, really smitten with this new formula. So that is number 10 on my list and the last one I wanted to talk about. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me know what some of your all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes are down below in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.